It all started like any other visit. Jake and I had been friends since middle school. The kind of friendship where nothing felt off-limits. We shared everything, from our worst breakups to our stupidest decisions. I was over at his place all the time, and his house had become a second home. His mom still greeted me like one of her own, and I knew where every snack in the pantry was without asking. Jake's younger sister, Emily, was always just there. When we were younger, she was that annoying tag-along who'd try to get our attention while we were gaming or watching movies. We used to roll our eyes and send her off with some sarcastic joke. As we got older, she faded into the background, quiet, smart, respectful. She did her own thing, barely part of our world. But lately, I don't know. Something had changed. It didn't hit me all at once. It was more like a gradual shift. I'd catch myself noticing her more. She'd walk into the room, and for a second, the air felt different. Maybe it was how she carried herself now, more confident, more sure of who she was. She didn't demand attention, but she had this calm kind of presence that pulled you in. I didn't think much of it at first. Just passing thoughts. Everyone notices people. Doesn't mean anything. At least, that's what I told myself. At the time, I was in a rough spot with my girlfriend. We'd been together for almost 3 years, and lately, things had gone cold. Conversations felt forced, our routines predictable. We weren't fighting, we just weren't connecting. I kept thinking maybe it was just a phase, that things would click again. But weeks turned into months, and the silence between us grew louder. I stopped looking forward to her texts. I started spending more time away from home. Jake's place became my escape. We'd hang out, watch the game, talk trash about our fantasy teams. Emily would be around sometimes, reading a book on the couch or scrolling through her phone. I'd nod at her, maybe throw a casual, "Hey." She'd nod back. Simple. Normal. But one night, something shifted. We were in the kitchen grabbing beers, and Emily walked in wearing one of those oversized sweatshirts and shorts. Nothing revealing. Nothing out of line. But when she reached over me to grab a glass, her hair brushed against my arm, and for some reason, I felt it. I mean, really felt it. It caught me off guard. I laughed to myself later, thinking I was just touch-starved or reading into nothing. But once your brain makes a connection like that, you can't unsee it. I started noticing her more. The way she'd glance at me during dinner when Jake cracked a dumb joke. The way her eyes lingered for just a beat too long. The way she seemed to be around more when I visited. Still, I kept telling myself it was harmless. I wasn't doing anything. She wasn't doing anything. We were just existing in the same space. Then came the night Jake went out to grab something from the store. It was just Emily and me in the living room. She was scrolling through some playlist on her phone, asking if I liked a certain song. We started talking, really talking, about music, movies, random memories from when we were kids. I mentioned how weird it was that she'd grown up so fast. She smirked and said, "You're just noticing now?" It was playful, innocent on the surface. But the tone, it lingered. And so did her eyes. That night, as I drove home, my mind wouldn't shut off. I kept playing back that look, that smirk, that voice. What the hell was happening to me? I tried avoiding Jake's place for a while. Made up excuses. Said work was hectic. Truth was I didn't trust myself. And I wasn't sure how Emily would act around me again. But avoidance only worked for so long. Jake eventually insisted I come over for his birthday weekend. A few friends, some drinks, backyard fire pit. It was casual, no pressure. When I arrived, Emily was out there already, helping set up. She looked at me and smiled, not in a forced way, not overly friendly, just knowing. Throughout the night, I caught her watching me more than once. And every time, I felt something knot in my chest. Not guilt. Not exactly excitement either. It was confusion. Curiosity. Something unnamed. Jake was his usual self, cracking jokes and keeping the energy up. But my focus kept drifting. Later, when most of the guests had left and Jake went inside to crash, I found myself sitting outside alone. Emily came out with a hoodie and sat across from me. We talked again. This time it was deeper, about feeling stuck, about not knowing what we wanted from life. Her voice was soft, and her words felt too honest. Vulnerable. And when she said, "Sometimes it feels like nobody really sees me," I didn't know what to say. I just looked at her. In that moment, I realized I did see her. And maybe I always had. But I also knew this was a line I couldn't afford to cross. Still, I didn't move. Neither did she. We didn't touch. We didn't flirt. But the space between us was loud. That night, I went home with 1,000 thoughts running through my head. I tried to rationalize everything. Tried to remind myself that this was Jake's sister. That I had a girlfriend. That I wasn't that guy. But I couldn't lie to myself. Something had already started. Not physically, but emotionally. The line was blurring fast. I told myself it was a one-time feeling. That night by the fire with Emily had stirred something, sure, but it didn't mean anything. I had control. I was still the same guy. Loyal. Solid. Lines might blur, but I wouldn't cross them. But then I saw her again. And everything I'd built in my mind to keep things in check started to crack. Jake had invited me over to watch a fight. Usual group of guys, wings, beers, trash talk. Nothing out of the ordinary. But when I walked in and saw Emily, something shifted. She wasn't dressed up, just jeans and a tee, but I couldn't stop looking at her. And the worst part? She knew. There was a flicker of amusement in her eyes, like she could read every thought I was trying to suppress. Later that night, I went to grab something from the kitchen and she followed. I could feel it before I even turned around. That tension. That awareness. She leaned against the counter, crossed her arms, and just looked at me. Like she was waiting. For what I didn't know. Maybe for me to say something. Maybe for me to admit it. I didn't. I made some stupid joke to break the silence. She smiled but didn't laugh. Then she said, "You've been avoiding me." I didn't deny it. Couldn't. The silence that followed said more than anything I could have said. From that night, things changed. There were more moments. Subtle glances, quiet exchanges when Jake wasn't paying attention. Texts that started innocent and gradually edged into something else. It was never explicit, never too far, but it was emotional. We were orbiting something dangerous and we both knew it. One night, Jake had to step out to pick up his girlfriend from work. It was just Emily and me again. She was sitting on the couch when I walked in, and I hesitated for a second before sitting down next to her. We didn't speak. Just sat there in that loaded silence. Eventually, she turned to me and said, "You ever wonder what would happen if we stopped pretending?" It wasn't a question meant to be answered. It was a statement. And in that moment, I was done pretending. She leaned in, and I didn't pull back. Our lips touched, barely. A soft, hesitant kiss. But it was enough to detonate every wall I'd built. I felt guilt rush in instantly, but I didn't stop. Neither did she. When Jake came back, we acted normal. No one suspected anything. But everything had changed. From then on, it became something we didn't talk about but kept going back to. A stolen touch in the hallway. A long look across the room. I'd come over and feel my heart racing, not because of the plans with Jake, but because of the possibility of seeing her. And she always found a way to appear. I started lying more. Telling my girlfriend I had work when I didn't. Making up reasons to stop by Jake's place. I hated who I was becoming, but at the same time, I didn't want to stop. Being with Emily felt electric. Dangerous. Alive. It gave me something I didn't even realize I'd been missing. One night, she texted me to come over. Jake was out of town for the weekend. I hesitated for hours, pacing, battling with myself. But in the end, I went. We didn't talk much. She opened the door, looked at me like she'd been waiting all night, and pulled me in. It was quiet, soft, and messy. We crossed the line fully, and I knew there was no coming back from that. We were officially having an affair. Afterward, we didn't speak. We just lay there in silence, both staring at the ceiling. I could feel the weight of what we'd done settling in. The betrayal. The risk. The secret we'd now buried ourselves under. The next morning, I couldn't look at myself. I avoided mirrors. I went home, ignored my girlfriend's texts, sat in the shower until the water ran cold. Every part of me screamed that I should end it, walk away before it imploded. But I didn't. Emily and I didn't talk about that night. But the energy between us shifted. She started opening up more, telling me how she'd always felt like she was in the background, like no one ever really looked at her the way I did. She said being with me made her feel seen. And I couldn't lie, I felt the same. There was a connection. Something that felt real in a way that my relationship hadn't in months, maybe years. But it didn't make it right. If anything, it made it worse. Because I couldn't dismiss it as just lust or boredom. There were real emotions now, tangled with guilt and secrecy. We kept meeting in secret. Texts turned into late-night drives. Excuses turned into habits. It became a double life. And the more it continued, the more I knew it was only a matter of time before it all blew up. But even knowing that, I couldn't stop. I didn't want to. One evening, Jake invited me over for a casual hangout. Nothing special. I went, trying to act normal. But I could feel Emily's presence before I saw her. When she walked in, our eyes met for a second too long. Jake was laughing about something, but I wasn't listening. All I could hear was the pounding in my chest. Later, Emily brushed past me in the hallway, her fingers grazing mine. That was all it took to send me spiraling again. The lies, the sneaking around, it all started to take a toll. I was distracted at work, distant at home. My girlfriend noticed. She asked if something was wrong. I said no. She didn't believe me. Emily, on the other hand, was becoming more bold. She wanted more time. She wanted answers. She wanted to know what this meant. And I didn't have them. I was stuck between two lives, one built on history, routine, and fading love. The other built on secrecy, adrenaline, and a dangerously strong connection. And I knew, deep down, that neither could survive much longer. I started telling myself lies to make it easier. That it was temporary. That no one was getting hurt. That I could stop anytime. But the truth was, I was in deeper than I wanted to admit. What started as chemistry had turned into routine. Emily and I weren't just hooking up, we were confiding in each other, relying on each other. I wasn't just cheating physically. I was emotionally unavailable to everyone else in my life. I stopped trying to fix things with my girlfriend. The guilt had hollowed me out, and I didn't have the energy to pretend. Our conversations were short, forced. We avoided eye contact. Even the fights stopped. There was just apathy. I started thinking about ending it, but couldn't find the right way. I told myself I needed time to figure things out, but that was another excuse. Emily, on the other hand, was asking harder questions. What were we doing? What was going to happen next? Did this mean anything? I avoided answering. I didn't want to give her false hope, but I also didn't want to let her go. I was selfish. I kept her in the middle because I was too weak to choose a side. She never pushed too hard, but I could feel her growing tired of the secrecy. She wanted more. She wanted real time, not just stolen minutes. She started imagining a future with me. I could see it in her eyes. And part of me wanted it too. But how do you build something good on top of something broken? I started having dreams where it all came crashing down. Jake finding out. My girlfriend screaming. Emily crying. I'd wake up in a panic, heart racing, covered in sweat. But in the light of day, I'd go right back to the pattern. Pretending everything was fine. It wasn't fine. It was getting worse. One night, I forgot to delete a message. My girlfriend saw it. Just a short text from Emily asking if I'd made it home safe. Nothing explicit, but it was enough. She confronted me calmly, too calmly, and I didn't even bother denying it. I just stared at her, silent. She packed a bag that night. Said she couldn't look at me without seeing everything I'd thrown away. I didn't chase her. I didn't apologize. I just stood there, like the coward I'd become, watching her walk out. When I told Emily, she didn't react the way I expected. She didn't smile or feel triumphant. She looked sad, like she understood exactly what this meant. I was hers now, at least on paper. But it didn't feel like a win. We started spending more time together. At her place, in my car, wherever we could be alone. At first it felt like relief, no more lying, no more sneaking around. But that feeling didn't last. It got heavier. quieter. Without the thrill of secrecy, all that was left was the reality of what we'd done. And it didn't feel romantic. It felt complicated. I couldn't go to Jake's place anymore. I made excuses, dodged his calls. He started asking if something was wrong, but I avoided the truth. I couldn't look him in the eye knowing I was sleeping with his sister. It made me sick. He'd trusted me, brought me into his home, and I betrayed him in the worst way. Emily noticed the distance. She said it felt like I was pulling away. She wasn't wrong. I cared about her, but the weight of everything started to bury whatever good we had. I wasn't proud of us. I wasn't proud of who I was with her.
We fought for the first time.
She asked me what I wanted, and I didn't have an answer. She said she felt like I was ashamed of her, and I couldn't deny it. Not because of who she was, but because of how this started. Because I didn't know how to separate her from the damage we'd caused. She started to withdraw after that. Stopped texting as much. Stopped asking to see me. I told myself it was for the best, but deep down it hurt. I missed her. I missed how easy it had been, before the consequences caught up. And then it happened. Jake found out.
I don't know how.
Maybe Emily told him. Maybe he pieced it together from the missed calls, the weird energy, or something I left behind. All I know is that one night I got a call from him, and his voice was shaking with fury. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just asked, "Why?" And I had nothing. There was no excuse. No explanation that would make any of it okay. He hung up. Blocked me everywhere. I haven't spoken to him since. Emily sent me one message after that. Just 3 words. He knows now. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Everything had come undone. I spent the next week trying to hold myself together. No girlfriend. No best friend. No Emily. Just silence. I couldn't sleep.
Couldn't eat.
My world had gone from crowded to hollow in a matter of days. And still, I kept wondering if it was worth it. If what Emily and I had was worth all the destruction. The truth is, I don't know. There were moments when it felt like it was. When I felt seen, alive, wanted. But those moments were brief. What lasted longer was the guilt. The betrayal. The damage I'd done to people who didn't deserve it. And I can't escape that. The affair didn't end in flames. It ended in silence. No closure. No goodbye. Just 2 people who made a mess of everything, standing in the ruins, unsure of what to do next. In the weeks that followed, life became painfully quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't soothe, it scrapes. There were no dramatic confrontations anymore, no desperate calls, no explanations. Just absence. People moved on, or tried to. I stayed stuck. Jake never responded to the apology I sent. A long message, typed and retyped, where I owned every mistake. I didn't ask for forgiveness. I knew I didn't deserve it. But I needed him to hear it. Still, no reply. And that silence? It felt louder than anything he could have said. Emily disappeared completely. No texts, no accidental sightings, no attempts to reconnect. She vanished from my life with the same quiet tension she'd brought into it. I thought about reaching out, but what could I say that hadn't already been said or felt? It was over. Not with a fight, not with anger. Just the slow, inevitable realization that it had nowhere else to go. I tried to go back to routine, but there was no routine left. Everything felt hollow. The bars I used to drink at with Jake? Couldn't step foot inside. Our group chat?
Dead.
Even music felt different. Every song reminded me of something, of her, of the time we spent hiding and pretending it meant something clean. The worst part wasn't losing them. It was knowing I did it to myself. I had all the control, all the choices, and I chose the most selfish path every time. Not because I wanted to hurt anyone, but because I was too weak to walk away from something that made me feel alive, even if it was wrong. I saw my ex-girlfriend once, by accident. She didn't say anything, just looked at me like I was a stranger. And that's exactly what I'd become. The version of me she loved was gone. I could see it in her eyes. There was nothing left to salvage. No part of her that wanted answers. I started therapy. At first, just to process the guilt, to make sense of how I'd allowed everything to collapse. But it became more than that. I started unpacking the patterns. The way I avoided discomfort by chasing distraction. The way I confused attention with affection. The way I built connections in the shadows because I was too afraid to demand honesty in the light. And Emily, she became a ghost in my mind. A name I didn't say out loud, a memory I didn't know how to file. She wasn't the villain. Neither was I, not completely. We were just two people who crossed a line and didn't know how to come back from it. We created something intense and fragile, and in the end, it couldn't survive the light of day. There's a part of me that still thinks about what might have happened if we met under different circumstances. If we'd been honest from the start. If I hadn't been in a relationship, if she hadn't been Jake's sister, if we weren't so tangled in other people's lives. But what ifs are just softer lies. The truth is, we did what we did. No version of it exists without the betrayal. Months passed, slowly, painfully. I got used to the loneliness. It didn't feel good, but it felt deserved. I didn't try to rush through it. I sat in it. I faced it. Every emotion I'd tried to avoid, guilt, shame, regret, I let them hit me full force. No numbing, no excuses. Eventually, I started repairing the parts of me that were salvageable. Not to win anyone back, just to be someone I could respect again. I rebuilt routines, focused on work, reached out to family I'd neglected. I didn't tell them the whole story, but they knew I'd gone through something. Their quiet support meant more than they realized. I haven't spoken to Emily since it ended. Haven't seen her. I sometimes wonder how she's doing, if she found peace, if she looks back with anger or sadness or both. I wonder if she fell for someone new. Someone who could give her what I never could, something honest, something open. I hope she did, even if I never know. As for Jake, I still think about him almost every day. I don't expect forgiveness. But I hope one day he finds a way to forget the worst of me. Not because I want to be part of his life again, but because he deserves to carry less weight. I hate that I'm the source of so much damage in his story. That I became the betrayal he never saw coming. There's a certain kind of pain that never fully leaves. You don't heal from it. You just learn how to carry it without letting it crush you. That's what this has become for me. A constant reminder. Not to punish myself, but to remember the cost of dishonesty, the ripple effect of selfish decisions. I don't tell this story to justify anything. There's no redemption arc here. Just a lesson I learned the hard way. Feelings are not excuses, attraction is not permission, and some lines, once crossed, can't ever be uncrossed. I used to think affairs were black and white. One person's bad, the other's broken, and everything else falls apart. But now I know they're built in silence. In tiny compromises. In unspoken desires we don't admit, even to ourselves. And by the time we finally look in the mirror, the damage is already done. I live differently now. Not perfectly, but honestly. I don't blur lines. I don't chase what doesn't belong to me. I keep distance where it's needed. And when I feel something for someone, I ask myself if I'm proud of that feeling or hiding from it. That question alone has saved me from repeating this story. Maybe someday I'll tell Jake the whole truth, face to face. Maybe I won't get the chance. Either way, I'll carry that conversation with me, even if it only happens in my head. And Emily, she'll always be a part of this story. Not as a regret, but as a reminder of how fragile life becomes when we abandon our principles for a rush that doesn't last. In the end, I didn't lose everything because I fell for the wrong person. I lost everything because I wasn't strong enough to walk away when I knew I should have. And now I live with that. Quietly. Completely. Every single day.